Hello, everyone, and welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I'll be talking about my top five comedies of all time. And this time I'm flying solo, so I wish Joe to feel better, and my brother, he's busy, and Adrian, he's also busy as well. So it's just going to be me this time, guys. And so I'll be talking about my top five favorite comedies of all time. And yeah, so let's get started. Let me bring that up here. So, sorry, ticker. And so to start off with my number five, I got The Awful Truth, starring Cary Grant and Irene Dunne. This is a film I actually just watched recently for this month, for my romantic comedies month. And what I love about this movie is Cary Grant and Irene Dunne's chemistry together. I think they're hilarious, and excuse me, and I really like how hilarious Irene Dunne is. She to me was the big standout of the film. A lot more, interesting, a lot more different, and also Cary Grant. This is his first, from my understanding, his first ever screwball comedy. He was kind of in dramas before, so this really solidified who he was as an actor and his style of comedy and his style of just characters as well. So I absolutely love this movie. It was a great first time watch, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's available on the Criterion Collection. So if you're a fan of that, that's a great spot to pick it up. And yeah, just how crazy and zany it is. I love, I don't know, just something about their chemistry together. Like Irene Dunne in one scene, she dresses up as his sister. They're a husband and wife getting a divorce, and just to mess with them, she's dressed as his crazy sister, and it's hilarious scene. And that to me is what really solidified my love for this movie. So yeah, that's my number five, The Awful Truth. Got a comment here from Leonard H. List already starts great. The Awful Truth is really great. Absolutely, man. I love this movie a lot, and I think it's a good introduction into Cary Grant's filmography. I'm in the process of trying to watch all of his movies. He did about 75, and to me, this one was a great highlight and a great introduction into his filmography. All right. So with that, let's move on to my number four, which is Office Space. So I absolutely love Office Space. Every single time I watch it, I notice something different, something more hilarious. I love the Lumbergh character. I actually dressed up as him for Halloween one year. And of course, everybody thought I was Dwight Schrute. A little disappointed about that, but I digress. I love that character so much. And just the monotonous horribleness of an office job. I'm sure many of us in our careers have had very similar bosses and similar work environments. It's a very relatable movie, and it's a very inspiring movie. But more importantly, it's hilarious. I think another favorite character of mine in that is Milton. His red stapler. I actually got one right here, red swing line. I just love his character so much, and just how ridiculous and strange they all are. It's kind of like a fever dream almost, honestly. Just how the scenarios go through. I think the main character, we can all really relate to him. He's kind of like our gateway into this crazy and zany world. Like with Lumbergh and Milton and his friends, Michael Bolton, all these characters are just so crazy and weird. And this to me is probably my favorite style of comedy, like this type of making comedy out of some mundane things. I think another example, Napoleon Dynamite, right? I think that's another great example of this style of comedy. And yeah, I've seen it several times. If I'm in a bad mood, this is a good movie to put on for me. And yeah, I love Office Space. All right. So we'll move on to my number three. So my number three is The General, starring Buster Keaton. I love this movie a lot. I think Buster Keaton is a master at physical comedy, you know, especially in the scenes where he's on top of a train. And the one in particular I'm thinking of is he's riding on the very front of it, and he has to use a giant piece of wood to lock off the other, to knock off another one because it's blocking the track. And just reading how that was a real stunt. Like if he missed that, the train would have derailed. He probably would have been killed. So he's just an absolute daredevil, and he does it with the funniest deadpan face ever. I just love every single second of it. Um, yeah, I love the setting too. You know, it's in Civil War era, and I love the costumes they did. They're fantastic. But more than that, I think the comedy of the movie is really, really strong. And and my see, I think this is my favorite Buster Keaton film too. Now I think about it, in aspects of the scope of the work and the daredevil work, but also of the comedy. Like there's one scene where he's trying to register to join the army for the Civil War, and he keeps thinking the reason why they're rejecting him is because he's too short, and so he thinks they're bigoted towards short people, but it's because he's a train engineer. They need train engineers, but it's a hilarious scene of misunderstanding, and it just seeing how mad he gets from it's hilarious. So yeah, I love The General. Super good film. All right, we got the Road Critic in here. This is his top 5 list. To Be or Not to Be. Ooh, I have a question about that. Is that the original one, or is that the Mel Brooks and Anne Bancroft one? I've only seen that one. That one was pretty funny. Number 4, Philadelphia Story, classic. I love Cary Grant in that one as well. And Katharine Hepburn, she's fantastic in that one. Number 3, Bringing Up Baby. Hey, same thing. Yep, Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, hilarious. Number 2, Arsenic and Old Lace. Nice, nice. Number 1, His Girl Friday. Okay, so I think you're probably in a similar boat. You really like Cary Grant movies. I've seen pretty much all of these. So yeah, good list there. All right, so we'll move on to my number 2. Oh, he's responded. The 1942 one for me. Haven't seen the Brooks one. Okay. Well, from my understanding, is the Brooks one is very, very similar to the 1942, almost to the point where I think they adapted the same screenplay. I could be mistaken, but okay, cool. Well, I need to check out the 1942 one then. I have not seen that one. All right, so let's move on to my number 2. So, speaking of Mel Brooks, my number 2 is Young Frankenstein. This, to me, is probably his best movie. I'd put it up there with Blazing Saddles. I was having a hard time kind of deciding, but I decided because I've seen this one way more times. I quote it all the time. I just love the whole atmosphere of it. I picked this one because, to me, Mel Brooks, he really mastered the spoof genre. I think he was incredible with that. Because unlike other spoof movies, like the scary movies and all these other ones, Mel Brooks, he really dissected and looked into the intricacies of the specific genre he was adapting. So in the case of this one, filmed it in black and white. He tried to use old cameras as much as possible. He used a lot of set pieces from the original Frankenstein movies. He quoted a lot of the dialogue and all that is quoting other Frankenstein movies. So he had a respect for the genre, but also was able to poke fun of it at the same time. And to me, that's why I think he's the master of the spoof movie. And just this one in general, I love the comedy with it, especially with Gene Wilder as Frankenstein. You know, at the very beginning, one of my favorite scenes when he stabs himself in the leg, and he's like, "Class is dismissed," and he's trying to hide it. And I also love the monster himself. I think he's hilarious because when you first see them together on stage, you think they're going to do like in King Kong, where showing his awesome power and all that. But instead, they do a dance number, and it's so funny, the putting on the Ritz. That's probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. I love Young Frankenstein. It's a classic all around. And especially if you're a fan of the Universal monster movies, you'll really enjoy this one because Mel Brooks really pays homage and really pays respects to this genre. All right. So now we'll talk about my number one, and then after that, I could do kind of a Q&A if you guys are down for that. So let's go to number one, which is Raising Arizona. So I don't know how many of you guys have seen this film, but what I love about Raising Arizona is kind of like Office Space. It's super wacky, wacky characters, wacky interactions with each other. And it takes a kind of simple premise, which is a husband and wife, they want to have kids, but they can't. So they steal a kid from a rich socialite family who just had quintuplets. And just the crazy zaniness that happens on the road. Like there's a guy who rides a motorcycle who throws grenades and blows things up. Super hilarious. Before I forget, this is a Coen Brothers movie. This is one of their first ones that really got them in the mainstream. Yeah, just their witty, crazy humor, crazy camera angles. Like there's one scene when the mother Arizona, she finds out one of the kids is missing. There's like a camera that goes up and over a car, then up a ladder and into the window and zooms in on her face. It's amazing, amazing cinematography. And from what I remember about reading about that was they filmed it in reverse. So they pulled it out into that and then they reversed it to give that crazy effect. And it's fantastically done. Yeah, well, all around, I love this movie. It's got Nicolas Cage. He's hilarious. Got Holly Hunter, John Goodman, a couple others. Hilarious cast all around. It takes place, you guessed it, in Arizona. Just the craziness of that culture, you know, down in Arizona and kind of middle of nowhere. I loved it. I love it so much. They're just so strange and such weird characters, but you can't help but falling in love with them. They're just so amazing. And that's why it's my number one. I love the characters. I love the crazy sceneries. I love the crazy camera shots. I love the slapstick comedy, the dialogue comedy. All around, to me, it is the best comedy of all time for those various reasons. All right, so we got a comment here from Leonard H. Here are mine. Number 5, Seven Chances. Ooh, haven't heard of that one. Number 4, Masquerade in Vienna. Okay. Shop Around the Corner. Nice, nice. I like that one. That was a good Christmas movie. Number 2, Modern Romance. I haven't heard of that one. Number 1, Trouble in Paradise. Wow, I haven't heard of half of these. So I got to check those all out. Those sound very interesting. Yeah, so I'll add those to my letterbox even. But yeah, those are my top 5 comedies of all time. And so if you haven't already, you know, put your guys' lists in the description here, and we can talk a little bit about that as well. And if anyone is actually interested to come on and talk live, I could put a link in the chat and we could kind of have a dialogue back and forth if you're interested. So yeah, oh, okay. Seven Chances is a film by Buster Keaton. Got it. Okay. Yeah, he's got quite the filmography. Let's see, what's another one by him I really liked. I like The Cameraman. That one's really funny. And Sherlock Jr., of course, classic. But yeah. Cool. So that. But yeah, to me in general, comedy is probably one of the best genres. I think critics overhate it too much, in my opinion. You know, whenever the Oscars come around or anything like that, you never see comedies get nominated really. You never really see genre movies in general don't really get nominated. And I think that's a shame because I don't think dramas I don't think drama should be the only things that are nominated and winning Best Picture. Now, I know in the past there's some comedies and whatnot, but it seems to me the Academy is more interested in dramas, which it can be a hit and miss. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't know. Just to me, comedy is a great way to kind of escape from, you know, the troubles of life and to feel good and to enjoy life, right? and it's fun to poke fun at things. You know, it. I think we're all too serious sometimes. um, and yeah, just comedy in general, man. I just love it so much, and I wish it would get nominated more. But I guess now I think about it, what comedies would be nominated, right? It just seems to me there haven't been that good of comedies as of late. It seems to me, like in the case of the Marvel movies and all those things, they add comedy into it, but it's not a strict comedy. You know, like even in the 2000s, we had like the Adam Sandler movies, we had that sort of thing. But is there really anything like that now? I feel like we're missing that. I feel like we're too serious now, if that makes sense. And we got Leonard commenting here. I agree on that. Whenever people ask me what my favorite genre is, I pick comedy. Yeah, it really is a great genre, and I really think it's overhated. Now, I do understand, comedy is subjective, really subjective, because um, everybody's types of different types of comedy appeal to different people, right? Some people like more sarcastic humor, some like more slapstick, some like more serious. So it makes sense, but I don't know. It's interesting. World critic, do I have a favorite comedic actor? Ooh, that's a good question. Um, hmm. I'll do living and dead. So living, probably my favorite comedic actor. No, I don't know if he'd really be considered an actor. I would say Jerry Seinfeld, because Seinfeld is my favorite TV show of all time. I just love his style of humor, very sarcastic, very, straight shooting and whatnot. And then dead, I would say Buster Keaton. I love his style of physical comedy and his style of, the stunt work, his incredible stunt work he did. And yeah, maybe I'd say as a close second, maybe Charlie Chaplin as well. But I think he goes a little too much into the drama or the sad side. So no, I would say I would stick with Buster Keaton for that. Yeah, good question though. All right. Has anybody seen any comedies lately that they've really liked? I've been trying to think if there's any recent ones I've really liked, and really can't think of any because, like I said, it seems like everybody is adding comedic elements into their movies, which is fine, but I just feel like to me we're kind of missing so many comedy films. We're missing like an Adam Sandler, like I mentioned, or a Chris Farley, or a Buster Keaton. Even we're missing a Buster Keaton. Um, so I hope we could kind of learn to laugh at ourselves a little bit more and have more comedies and um, more funny things. Because life is too short to be serious all the time. I think it's okay if we could laugh at ourselves, if we can laugh at other things. I keep saying we're too serious. It's true though. I think we could be a little too serious, especially now with how culture is we're very serious. You can't joke about this, can't joke about that, and I don't know. I think to me, comedy is a form of flattery, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you're pointing something out that everybody's thinking, but you're doing it in a funny way. But I also think it's a way of showing love and support to people. Like you're, especially if you're in dialogue, talking back and forth with each other. To me, comedy is a great way because it eases tensions. You kind of relax a little bit. It's a great conversation thing, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm really confident and sure that comedy is great. It's a great conversation thing. It's a great thing we could talk about with each other. But yeah, I'm probably gonna end this in about a couple of minutes here. But before I do, if you have any questions or like I said, if you want to join in, I'll put a link in the chat and whatnot. Uh, yeah. Ooh, got comment here. Currently working myself through Jacques Tati's comedies, and I like them a lot. Also, the Fred Astaire, Bing Crosby film Holiday Inn massively impressed me lately. That's a great film right there. Um, and that's another example of different style of comedy, right? Like Fred Astaire, he's kind of a hot-headed, kind of serious guy, but it's kind of hilarious how he's doing that. And then Bing Crosby, he's kind of the, I guess, the smooth, kind of cool guy, but still hilarious as well. Uh, I like that movie a lot, and I do like White Christmas more. That's kind of a soft reboot of Holiday Inn, but it's great. It's a great comedy film too. Yeah. But I'll have to check out and I'm butchering it. I'm sorry, but Jacques Tati, is that how you say it? I should check some of those out. Those sound interesting. Right. Let me see if anyone is interested. Here is a link to this StreamYard. But yeah, another thing I was thinking about too is comedy. Good comedy to me transcends time, right? Like the Looney Tunes, that's an example. I think they're oh, got a comment here. Would like to, but don't have. Can't do so at the moment. Maybe some other time. One last question for me. Any comedies you think you're overrated? Ooh, okay, that's a good question. Um, hmm. Uh, Film wise, I can't think of anything, but I can think of TV shows if that's all right. Uh, the one I could think of is like The Office and Friends. They're funny. They have funny moments, but to me, I think they're overrated. Um, I personally like Parks and Rec and Seinfeld more, which are kind of the opposites of those, I guess. Because to me, I love the zany characters in Parks and Rec, and in Seinfeld, I love the crazy scenarios they're in. The situation of they don't learn anything, they don't hug each other out. It's strictly a comedy, and to me, that those are better examples of comedy. Um, the Office, well, The Office does have good comedy and does have classic moments, but I don't know. I've seen too much of it, and I think everybody talks about it too much. It's great, don't get me wrong, but um, I think Parks and Rec deserves as much, if not more, recognition because of its characters, because of their crazy scenarios too. I think it's a worthy one to discuss. And just Friends, I don't know, man. I've never found it funny. I'm sorry. I've tried so many times. I've watched like best clips of. I've tried watching episodes of it. I can't get into it. It's just I think the characters are not really relatable. Maybe that's what it is for me. Um, like they just seem to be whiny all the time. I don't know. Now you can say that about Seinfeld, but they're whining about situations that are either very mundane and silly to be whining or be grumpy about, or they're just so ridiculous you can't help but laugh at it. Like the character George Costanza, he's always doing something stupid, or Kramer. They're all in all they're crazy characters. But kind of back to my point earlier, I think comedy transcends time. Good comedy, like the Looney Tunes characters, for example, people still watch them to this day just because of how wacky they are, the zaniness of them, and the looniness of them. Um, Pepe Le Pew and Bugs Bunny and Daffy. I really love Daffy Duck's cartoons because, he's super confident in his abilities, but he's not good at all. That's the comedy of it. Is he thinks he's super good, but he's not, right? And that transcends time to me. And I think that's also why I like Seinfeld and Parks and Rec more. Is I feel like those characters can transcend time. Um, Whereas Friends, I think, is more of a nostalgic thing. It's specifically for the 90s, right? To me, that's what it feels like anyway. And not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, but uh, just preference-wise, I think Seinfeld will hold up a lot more in the long run. All right, guys. Well, just a couple more minutes here, and then I'll head on out. But yeah, just comedy, great genre. I'll reiterate. I think we should have more of it. I heard that what's his name, Bert Kreischer. He's on Joe Rogan a lot. He talked about how he's making a new comedic film that's like super over the top and all that. I look forward to that. I hope we kind of have a renaissance in that to kind of bring back comedies, right? Because I feel like we're lacking. I feel like we need it, you know. And the comedies we do have now, or at least the comedic moments like in the Marvel movies, they're very self-referential. If that makes sense. Like they make fun of an aspect about them, which to me it's kind of lazy humor. If that makes sense. Like people who make fun of Star Wars or whatever it is, right? It doesn't seem like they can think of something funny about the situation. They're just making fun of what it is, if that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But to me, I think we need more slapstick. We need more comedic actors like Chris Farley, like I mentioned. I think we need another one. I think that'd be a great thing for our society and just world in general to have something to laugh at and something to laugh at. Yep. All right, but just one more time before I go, I'll share my list. And so, number 5, The Awful Truth. Number 4, Office Space. Number 3, The General. Number 2, Young Frankenstein. And number 1, Raising Arizona. And so, to me, those are the 5 greatest comedies of all time. And obviously, that list will be changing, of course, right? As you watch more, the list change. But for right now, I'm going to stick to this list. And I highly recommend you check them out. And I also recommend, if you've seen the banner below, following my letterbox at Really Old Movies, but then also follow Joe at The Awkward Actor, follow my brother Hunter at It's a Good Movie, and follow Adrian at Terrana Cinema. All on Letterboxd, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the works. But yeah, that's kind of everything I wanted to discuss today. Thank you all so much for coming on and chatting with me in the chat. You guys are great. And with that, this has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care, everyone.